Good afternoon. Our class today is going to cover a variety of different topics, and what I'd like to do is just take a little time and just go over what those topics are going to be. And so today's activities and goals completion. First of all, we want a review of the course syllabus and the tracking calendar. We want to look at upcoming exams and quizzes so that you're prepared and set for those. Then we would like to then spend some time on a presentation explaining posture. What is good posture? Then we're going to do a lab time where we're going to do simple postural analysis. We'll come back and we're going to connect the postural distortions as far as a presentation. Then we're going to then work on advanced postural analysis, and we will have you then eventually doing a lab where you do a treatment plan for postural distortions. As far as being patient-specific, and this is going to be a written plan. So what we'd like to do is just talk about and let you remember that our quiz is on, our next class assignment is on chapters 2, 3, and 4, and that next week, a week from today, we will have an exam over the first 4 weeks of class to date. If there's any questions or so, please feel free to ask them at any time. Be happy to answer those questions for you. During the lab times, we'll also be able to talk to you and give you some ideas of what's going on as far as the exams go. So posture. Posture is how people see you. The question is, how is it that they see you? And so let's talk about posture. There's two different types of curves, and those are called developmental curves. The primary curve is that which is the developing fetus. We call that, as you realize, the kyphotic curvature of the mid-back, which is the thoracic spine. The baby that's in that fetal position, that is a primary curve. Once the baby is born, then we're going to start developing the two secondary curves that exist. One is in the cervical spine, and the other one is in the lumbar spine. So all of you are familiar with an infant, correct? Either brothers, sisters, or even your own children, right? Yep, okay. And so what's going to happen is as that infant starts to pick up their head, they're developing the neck muscles, but they're also developing that primary curve, which is in the cervical spine. That is going to have a forward or an anterior curvature to the spine, and that's called a lordotic curvature. As that child starts to crawl, their head is going to be up, and that's also further development of the musculature as well as that curve in the neck. So as that child is picking up the head as well as they're crawling, they're developing this secondary curve in the cervical spine. This is where the primary curve, which is the thoracic, is, and that is from birth there. The secondary curve that we're going to next talk about is the lumbar spine. As the infant starts to stand and starts to walk, you'll notice that they walk in almost like in a chimpanzee kind of fashion or a monkey kind of stance. They are working on the muscles as well as balance, but they're also working on the curvature in the lumbar spine, which is called a secondary curvature. All secondary curvatures are with a forward apex or anterior apex, and that is known as a secondary curve. As the child becomes an adult, when we take a side view of the spine, what we expect to do is to see a curvature in the cervical spine, a curvature in the lumbar spine, which are both lordotic curvatures. We would expect to see the opposite curve where the apex goes towards the posterior, and that's going to be the primary curve. We will be able to take a look at postures, and we can also tell whether those curves are still existing or not. We will see these also on X-ray. So what is truly perfect posture? When we take a look at somebody from the side, just as in this picture here, and we're using a posture grid, and we'll be talking about posture grid in just a couple of moments. What we want to do is be able to draw a straight line as the person is standing there in a relaxed position. We are going to expect that if we draw this plumb line will join the ear, the shoulder, the hip, pretty much the hands, all the way down to the ankle. That is considered perfect posture. Any deviation from that is considered abnormal posture. Okay. Any questions at this point? Mr. Chen? Okay. Yep. Absolutely. From the ear, through the shoulder, down through the hand, and down into the ankle. And the thumbs, as they're standing, should also be pointing anterior. Good question, Mr. Chen. Thank you. So we talk about good posture, and we're going to talk about analysis pretty soon, but why do we worry about good posture? Well, there's approximately 6 reasons that we worry about good posture. And we're just going to take a quick look at it, but think of this: to have more confidence, increased motivation, lower stress, and ability to basically rule the world. You sit up straight. Yep, that's just like your mother always told you. You've probably all had that. Stand up straight, don't slouch. That your posture is very important. Absolutely 100% correct, and in just a little bit we're going to find out that your parents were exactly right. The only thing that they forgot to tell you is how to do that, and we will tell you how to do that. First of all, good posture can lift your confidence. Have you ever tried walking around with your shoulders lowered, or even watched somebody older as they're now leaning over and walking? Absolutely. Their confidence level is so different, and it's changed. And some of these people that you've seen are so vibrant and full of life, and now with the rounding of the shoulders. A lot of people in our societies today believe that we start by standing up straight, and that as we get older, that we start then to bend over a little bit and walk a little bit slower, and then eventually we're going to get to a cane and to a walker, and then eventually into a wheelchair. That is totally false, and you need to make note of that doesn't have to be. Those are choices that we make. So one is good posture can lift your confidence level. The second one is it'll give you an energy boost. Think of this. Take a deep breath in with your shoulders turned forward. Take a deep breath in. Okay? You got a deep breath? Okay, Mr. Park? Yep. Ms. Gonzalez? Absolutely. You notice the difference? Now what I want you to do is now bring your shoulders back, and now I want you to take a deep breath in through your nose. Do you notice the difference? You do. Absolutely. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. A lot of people have fallen victim to that afternoon slump, but before you go down for that third cup of coffee, check on how you're sitting. Okay? A lot of people these days sit so much, and we're in this flexion position all day working over a computer or over papers or whatever it is, that now we're getting this forward where the musculature, which we call the flexion musculature, and you know all the names of the muscles, and so we're getting a problem there. So by getting a better posture is going to be very important. Also, it can help reduce your stress. Oh, that's interesting. Improved posture can also help build your resilience to deadlines and to-do list. As we are in an upright position with the shoulders back, again, our breathing is better, our nerve system functions so much better, right? More oxygen to the brain. Our sympathetic and parasympathetic systems are now better in balance. So there's a lot of ways that we can help reduce stress. Sitting up straight may lower your fears, okay? When we're down in this position, our sympathetic system is taking over more so, and we are not going to function the way that we should be or that we were intended to. The next one is it could make you more productive at work. Do you think getting more oxygen to your brain, more neurological input to your brain could help make a difference? Do you think there's a lot of people out here in the world that aren't doing the things that they're supposed to because they are fatigued, because their nervous system isn't functioning at peak performance. How can we get it to function at peak performance? Better posture. It helps optimize your breathing. We just did that example where you take a deep breath with your shoulders rounded. We can do that to people in our office. We can share that information with people that are under a lot of stress, who are now in a sympathetic pattern, where we get them standing upright, better posture, and now instead of the sympathetic system being dominant, we get back into the parasympathetic where it's supposed to be. So how do people end up with bad posture? There's a variety of different things. 5 of them are up here, and we'll mention a couple more after these 5. But how is it the way that we stand? Do we stand with the one hip, which I call a lamppost posture? Some people, when they talk, they want to lean up against the wall, and sometimes you just wonder if they're holding up the wall or the wall's holding them up. But the fact is that that will torque that whole spine, and you do that the same way all the time, we're going to have a problem. Here's another way that a lot of people stand. We'll see this in kids as they're growing up, especially those that are a little bit taller. They don't want to be tall and stand up straight. They want to kind of blend in and fit in with everybody else. So now they're hunched over, and you've got this forward-leaning posture. That's going to have an effect on that spine. They don't realize it. How is it that you sit in a chair? Most people cross one leg over the other leg. Look at what happens to the pelvis here when they cross one leg over the other one. Okay? So as this young lady here is crossing her leg over, she's torquing her pelvis here. She's leaning forward with her head, and so now these musculature is all out of whack and balance, and the spine is going to go along with it, and with that is also the nerve system is going to be affected greatly. How we oftentimes sit. We have a tendency to sit awkward, put our legs underneath our buttocks and sit that way. That's going to change this whole pattern of how those hips function and how those muscles are going to function. And then along with that, again, we have to remember that the nerves are going to be affected also. The 5th one on this particular diagram is how we sleep. Sleeping on the side or on your back or on your stomach. If you're not sleeping correctly, you're going to have a problem. You notice that she's got her arm underneath here that's going to put in an awkward position where her head comes down. That's definitely going to cause some tightness of the muscles throughout the night. If we basically spend a third of our life sleeping, being in bed, in an awkward position, what's that going to do? Not only that, we've got the turning or rotation of the shoulder, which is now going to cause problems within the rib cage itself. Rib cage houses all our vital organs, right? So, Mr. Chen, we have a problem here because our heart sits right here. So if we start to torque the pelvis or the thoracic cage, what's going to happen to that heart? What's going to happen to the lungs or the liver or the spleen or the pancreas? That's all housed in that area. So this area of protection now is going to become a problem. All right? So these are 5. Let's talk about another one that most people have right now going on. We call it text neck. How many people have a forward head leaning posture here as they're looking down on their cell phones or on their pads, iPads, and things like that? And they've already determined that any degree of change with the head will cause extra stresses and strains as far as weight per square inch on that whole supporting system. Some years ago, matter of fact, decades ago, there was a chiropractor in eastern United States who did a study of the changing head postures of criminals and found that with changes in that head posture, personalities also change. Remember, as we talked about the cervical spine, we have the brain stem that is up at the top here. So if that's being compromised, what else is being compromised along the way? We have to realize that everything is connected. So how do we truly check posture? And there are a variety of different ways. Some are a little bit more expensive and elaborate than others. This particular one is using a grid of lights that goes across the back of the spine, and they're basically checking. And what we want to do is basically check, as we take a look, they want to see that the ears are at a level position, that the shoulders are at a level position, and that the hips are at a level position. So on a posterior to anterior or anterior to posterior, we want to look at those key components. We want to look at the ear, we want to look at the shoulders, we want to take a look at the hips. Again, we want them level, variety of different instruments that can be used to do that. This happens to be one of them. A little bit more high tech. There's also computer programs that are available that do the same thing. One of them is called Posture Pro. It'll do the whole analysis for you. Another way to determine is using a grid system where the person will stand up against a grid. You will then take a photo, and you can use your iPhone or you can use a camera. And what you'll do is you're going to be taking a look at it from the side, and then you'll have them take a look at it from the front. Definitely at the side, we want to make sure that the ear, the shoulder, the hips, the ankle, along with the hand, are in that straight line. If we start to get distortion, so here you see where the ear is in front of the shoulders, so we call that forward head posture, abbreviated FHP, okay, forward head posture. Okay. These are diagrams that you take pictures of and you evaluate people, and then as time goes on and as you work with the individuals, now we can start talking about better posture and how we as chiropractors can make a difference in their world. So how do we check posture? Let's do one. Okay, so here's the lady here. Her eyes have been darkened out to help protect her privacy. But the question is, what are you seeing? Now, don't try to read anything else into this other than what you see. So, as you're taking a look, let's just take a quick review. We ideally want to see where there's a line. If you were to draw a line down the side of the body, that the ear, the shoulder, the hand, the hip, and the ankle are all in a straight line. All right? Here's just a couple of examples showing you someone that's not, and you can see how that curves. We're going to come back and we're going to do that same thing with the lady that we just saw. So again, this is like a grid. And so as we take a look at this lady here, what do you notice? And let's start just at the side. We draw a plumb line down just to give us an idea. Okay, it's going through her ear, but where's her shoulder? We can also take a look at this picture. Her ear is in front of her shoulder. That's indicative of a forward head posture. The body is also going to do some changes to take place. In this one, we see more of the rounding of the shoulders. The hands are not in line, and a lot of times that you can tell by just looking at what you can see as a person stands. If they stand and you're looking at the back of their hand, we have a rounding of the shoulders. You should be looking basically at their thumbs going forward without the hands going forward. All right? So what other changes do you see? Ms. Gonzalez? Absolutely. Besides that forward head posture, you're seeing that the shoulders aren't level. Okay? Anything else? Kind of hard to see the ears here. Do you notice, though, that there may be a little bit of a high point on there? Okay. Mr. Chen, you're seeing there's a hip difference where the one hip is higher than the other hip. Matter of fact, if you have a condition where the one shoulder is higher and the opposite hip is higher, then we're going to have a sideways curvature of the spine. From your anatomy and physiology class on spinal, what is a sideways curvature of the spine called? Right. Absolutely. It's called scoliosis. Is that a normal curvature of the spine? Right. It is not a normal curvature of the spine. What else do you see here? Okay, Mr. Chen? Okay, yep. You notice that we don't really have a curvature here in the spine, that it's looking like it's more of a straight neck. Probably better in this picture where it looks like it's more of a straight neck, or maybe some kind of kinking of the neck going on there. Okay? Absolutely. So everything is not totally in line the way that it's supposed to be. What a great way to decide and to be able to look at it. Now let's just talk a little bit. As you know, that the center of gravity, as our body starts to lean forward, our body is always going to try to seek what we call that homeostasis. That homeostasis is a total balance of the body, not just on a chemical basis, but also on a physical basis. All right? So what the body wants to do is it doesn't want to fall. So as that head goes forward, it automatically senses that change, and it's going to try to bring the body back. So as we get this forward head posture, the body and the shoulder's going to go along with that. The body's going to tuck the pelvis underneath to try to bring that center of gravity back, so that you as the person don't fall. And you'll see that oftentimes with people that have that forward head posture. So the hip's going to come back, and then they're going to be walking somewhat like this. Not a good way, because also now the spine is starting to lose these curves. We're losing the cervical curve, we're losing the lordosis in the cervical spine, the lordosis in the lumbar spine, as well as the thoracic spine. So something that was made to be curved so that forces could be applied and buffered are now going to be straight, and now we have jamming. This is not a healthy situation for the nerve system, nor for the structures of the spine itself or the joints that are there. The other thing that happens too, and people will not necessarily notice this, but you should be able to notice this, because part of your profession is noticing not just structure but also function. People that will now have that forward head posture, as the hips come back to bring that center of gravity back, you will notice that they will start with a foot flare, where the toes, instead of going straight, are now going off to the side. Now when that happens to the joint spaces itself, so on the skeleton, if you can kind of see, so as this pelvis tips back, where it should have an interior posture to it, it now tips back. The joints themselves in the hip cannot function as well as they used to, because this is an abnormal walk pattern that they will now have. So they will do a foot flare as they walk. For some people it'll be more obvious than others, but the best thing to do is have somebody walk on a sandy area, watch what their feet are doing. Where I come from in Wisconsin, where we have snow on the ground, we just have them walk in the snow. You can watch how their feet flare out. Now, when the feet start to flare out, we're going to put more pressure on the ankles, the knees, and the hips, as well as going up the rest of the spine. So now people are going to have this total problem going on. And so what will happen is something that could have easily been taken care of by changing some patterns in their lifestyle now become major problems. Other things that happen, and we looked at 5 of them. Other things, can you think of anything, Ms. Gonzalez? Okay, we spend most of our time seated, in a seated position. Most people, when they go to work, they never get up and move around, other than maybe at break time and lunchtime. And too much sitting will also cause those muscles, the anterior musculature, to tighten up, and the posterior musculature isn't strong enough to hold it. We need to talk about balance, okay? As you take a look at this individual, you know that there isn't a balance from right to left and front to back. So poor posture is causing a series of problems. Okay, so the question here is so how do we make a difference with people that should have fairly good posture, or as they start to change. These are all abnormal positions, and can we make a difference as chiropractors? And the answer is yes. So where do we start? Good question. We're going to start with a lab. I'm going to have you partner up with another doc here. And so what you're going to do is I want you to check each other's posture. So the question is, how do I do this? Well, what I want you to do is I want you to stand behind the patient, who is your partner. I want you to take your hands and I want you to put them right on their shoulder. Okay? I want you to look at your hands and see which hand is higher, right or left. Just make a note of that on a piece of paper then. Then what I want you to do is I want you to go down on the wings of the ilium, put your hands there, and see which one's higher. Or if they're equal. Okay? Now certainly there's ways that you can do this, and we can do diagrams. If you want to make a diagram, what you can do is, this is the person, and you can put their shoulders or their hips, and you know that you're looking at it from the back. So then this is going to be the right, this is going to be the left, and if the shoulders are off or the hips are off, just make the appropriate lines. That's an easy way to do it in a notebook, patient note kind of thing. If the head is off, then put that at an angle. Okay? That way, it's a very easy check to do. And so what I'd like you to do, again, is to pair up. I want you to do a couple of things. One, I want you to definitely check your shoulder and hip. I want you to take a look at what's happening from the back to the front. I also want you then to take a look from the side. I want you to take a look at the opening of the ear, see if it's in line with the shoulder, and the shoulder coming down with the arm, where the hands are pointing forward so that you can be looking at the thumbs. You should not be looking at the back of the hand. And it should be in line all the way down to the ankle. And then once you've done that, then we'll probably take about 5-10 minutes to do that. I want you just to take a look, and then I want you to switch. And so you'll be the doctor in the one position, and then your partner will be the doctor, and you'll be the patient. Any questions? No? Okay, let's go ahead and do that and spend about 10 minutes doing that. Great, and I'll walk around and check each one of you.